Welcome to today's explainer. Have you ever experienced that weird paradox where your life seems to slow down to an absolute crawl, while at the exact same time you're evolving at this frantic, incredible speed? Well, for so many people who had to pack up and change countries starting in 2022, that paradox, it just became their everyday reality. So today, we're unpacking a really candid piece of writing that explores exactly how migration completely rewires the way we think. The author uses this brilliant line that really hits home. Quote, "I move like a turtle, not in speed, but in adaptation." And honestly, that is the central metaphor of our explainer today. We're talking about the total abrupt loss of your familiar social roles. Think about it. You're no longer that experienced professional or the confident manager you were back home. Suddenly, you're starting from absolute zero in a brand new country. And because of that, just one standard calendar year turns into this grueling process of personal evolution. It's like you have to revert right back to a childlike state just to relearn how to walk socially. Which brings us to the introduction, the adapting turtle, where 1 year equals 5 years. Now, obviously, everyone's timeline is going to be a little bit different, but this compressed evolution, this feeling of living 5 years of development in just one, is a completely universal migrant experience. Okay, let's dive right into this timeline. Year 1, prenatal chaos. You exist, yet you're invisible. It is a period of absolute stress, shock, and total systemic collapse. Just picture the massive gap between these two worlds. On the left side, you have your past life, right? Working systems, your professional status, absolute predictability. You knew exactly how things worked. But on the right side, you have the reality of year 1. You find yourself standing in a total vacuum. You don't speak the local language, your phone is constantly pinging with Ukrainian air raid alerts, violently pulling you back to the past, while the local bureaucracy is just standing in front of you, like this unyielding brick wall. The local institutions, they just operate strictly by the rigid letter of the law. And you're left feeling completely, utterly helpless in front of them. And that exact state is what the author perfectly defines as prenatal chaos. It's this bizarre feeling where you're physically sitting right there in the room, but socially and professionally, you simply do not exist yet. You're a ghost. And if you felt like a ghost during that first year, if your entire existence boiled down to sheer survival mode and just trying to figure out which way is up, please know that your feelings are entirely justified. It's a really painful state, but it is an absolutely necessary starting point. So what happens next? Let's move on to year 2, the 5-year-old child, and the quest to explain. During this second year, the mere act of relocating finally shifts into actual immigration. That thick mental fog from year 1, it slowly begins to lift. You basically start taking these 3 highly practical steps. Number 1, you start grasping the basics of the language. Number 2, you finally start figuring out how the local systems and rules actually work. And number 3, which is honestly a real game changer, you start cutting out the excess. You filter out those unhelpful helpers and all that unnecessary noise. Basically, the life you had to forcefully put on pause finally begins to inch forward. But psychologically speaking, you feel exactly like a 5-year-old child. It's incredibly frustrating because you finally know what you want, you have clear needs, but actually articulating those needs to the locals or figuring out how to find what you're looking for, man, it is a massive, exhausting quest. You're just constantly banging your head against this barrier of expression. Which brings us to year 3, the misunderstood teenager. You are misunderstood and totally unheard. And this brilliantly illustrates our next stage. Hitting the misunderstood teenager phase means you've actually grown quite a bit in your new environment. Your language level is definitely better, and you can finally explain what you want. But suddenly, out of nowhere, you hit a brand new wall of isolation. It's like you're talking, but the locals just aren't listening, or they completely miss the point. They just don't grasp your underlying purpose or your internal reality. So you're speaking their language, sure, but your actual context, it's completely invisible to them. And honestly, perhaps the most painful reality of this third year is the lack of understanding from your former circles. Old friends, former colleagues, even relatives, whether they're still back home or in other countries, they often just cannot understand this specific journey you're on. You're living entirely different daily realities now, with totally different coping mechanisms. I mean, something as simple as a post about the realities of war can suddenly spark confusion or even outright aggression from people you used to be close to. It's tough, but your paths and perceptions have fundamentally diverged at this point. So how do you even cope with all of that? Well, a vital tool is adopting the Spanish mindset of mañana y despacito, which basically translates to tomorrow and slowly. It genuinely becomes a life-saving protective mechanism. You learn to filter out that external toxicity. You start stepping away from pointless online arguments, and you actively limit contact with people who just bring aggression to your day. You have to consciously protect your mental peace because you need to conserve all that energy for your own forward momentum.
Moving right along to year 4, the intern. Confidence with lags.
Now, what's really exciting about this phase is the tangible progress you've made. Socially, you've pretty much reached the equivalent of a 15 to 17-year-old local. You actually look confident when you're out and about among the residents. You've got a really solid vocabulary now, and you're finally picking up local professional experience or wrapping up some courses. It's a colossal amount of progress, and frankly, something to be incredibly proud of.
But despite all this massive progress, you still occasionally lag. Like spotty cell service when you drive out of a coverage zone, or a slightly buggy computer program written by a student intern. Every now and then, you still freeze up internally and just think, wait, where am I exactly? It is an exhausting feeling for sure, but it is an absolutely normal part of undergoing such a rapid, profound transformation. And that brings us to the grand finale. Supersonic evolution, 5 years equals 20 years. So the crucial takeaway is right here, the number 20. When you look back at the exhausting, chaotic reality of the past 5 years in immigration, you realize something amazing. Despite feeling slow, despite feeling chaotic and constantly lagging behind, you have successfully compressed what naturally takes a local resident 20 years into just 5. You crammed 2 full decades of social development, network building, and figuring out how the world works into a fraction of the time. Now, of course, reality doesn't just magically disappear. There are always going to be annoying nuances with paperwork, daily struggles, and those inevitable professional hiccups. You're probably never going to understand every single cultural detail perfectly. But the foundational growth, that is completely done. The base is built. And with this massive foundation of adaptation under your belt, the entire world is quite literally open before you. And so, we wrap up today's explainer with this incredibly powerful thought. You are a supersonic turtle. Congratulations! I just love that phrase. It brilliantly summarizes this whole messy journey. You survived the prenatal chaos, you learned the new rules of the game, and you achieved an unbelievable, hyper-accelerated evolution. So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. If you are capable of such a supersonic leap well under that much incredible pressure, what heights are you going to reach now that the horizon is totally clear? Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.